So let's start with thanking the organization for inviting me. I represent here my university, talking about the Italian Kennel Club, ENCI. I'm judge and I'm part of the scientific committee and the technical commission of the Italian Kennel Club. And these are the 3 points we are focusing on during our discussion and reflection about the conservation of heritage breeds. So we try to focus, and this is one of my main research theme, biodiversity conservation, through the analysis of health and try to always improve and ensure the welfare for the dogs we bred. Considering these points, I have to underline some aspects that are very typical of the Italian Kennel Club and can be seen as the reason of some action that are usually taken by the Italian Kennel Club that are quite different from what is done in other countries. So first of all, there's a strong link with the Ministry of Health and Agriculture. So the Italian Kennel Club is directly appointed by the Ministry of Agriculture to manage and preserve a canine stud book, and the Ministry of Agriculture and the Ministry of Health delegates are member of the Central Technical Commission. So it means that everything concerning Kennel Club stud book management activity, every time you have to change something about the regulation, the test you have to add, everything should be discussed with both the ministries, including the implementation of breeding rules and regulation. Another important aspect we have to take into consideration talking about Italian dogs is that only 18.42% are a registered dog. I think this is an overestimate of the Italian registered population because particularly in the south of Italy, we have a lot of dogs that are not microchipped, and so it is not possible to know the exact number of this dog. In Italy, we have around in 2025 140,000 new entries in the stud book, and this is the general approach to our dog population. Talking about the welfare of the dog, we have two important documents we have to take into consideration, and I think every kennel club in a country where this convention have been signed should take into consideration, because we try to focus not only on a specific extreme type, but everything that could be considered dangerous for the conservation of heritage breeds. So we consider breed standard. And for example, if you read the standard of the Volpino Italiano, the Italian Spitz, we made a great work introducing new bloodline, introducing a new color some years ago, that is the black one, and we tried to put everything could happen under a genetic point of view, introducing a new color. So it's a very strange standard because instead of excluding, is very inclusive of all the color that will be possible to create mating these new dogs, these black dogs, with the classical color of the breed. We have to take into consideration behavioral characteristics too, and in these last years, Italian Kennel Club is paying a lot of attention under public pressure and the need of this kind of regulation on behavioral tests. For example, the Good Citizen Dog Test for all the breeds and for mixed breed dogs too. So we are very focused on this activity because we think that the future of dog world is working with the dog, the activity with the dog more than only conformation or trials. Another important point we focus on is the information and education of readers and judges. And all these points are from the two convention and the multilateral consultation of party of the European Council. So we had a stronger legislative data set to work on. And then we have to take into consideration public awareness too, which are the point to pay attention when speaking about heritage breeds. So maximum and minimum values for age or weight. For example, the Italian Kennel Club this year decide with a regulation dating back last year that from the 1st of January, there's a trend towards miniaturizing dogs, and in particular in toy poodle. And the FCI standards say it's okay. The minimum age is 24, but you can say 23 is okay, so 1 centimeter less. And the Italian Kennel Club, under the suggestion of the Breed Club, decide to consider good for reproduction, and all the dog before entering, uh, before being considered breeder, should be measured, and all the disqualifying defects should be controlled by the judge before saying, okay, you can breed this dog. So we decide to stop at 24 without giving the -1 possibility to the breeder. So it's kind of focusing on the welfare, considering the standard too. We tried to focus on the proportion of weight and length, and this point, the third point, the shortness of the skull is linked to brachycephalic breeds, and we'll talk about later. Uh, According to the breed standard, Fontanella should be a very important defect for the breed. Abnormal position of the legs, it is very important. Abnormal position of the teeth, abnormal size and form of the eye and eyelids. It is a very difficult point to be understood by breeders, in particular old style breeder. They say, no, the Bassetan should have a diamond eyelids, and you say yes, but it is not very functional. It should be a hunting dog, a scent hound, so it's not functional. Anyway, diamonds, eyelids, and everything very romantic in a definition, but very not so linked to the physiology of the dog, the anatomy of the dog, and the functionality of the dog, for just an example. Very long ears, marked default skin, and then a semi-lethal factor. We have, and we know nowadays, thanks to genetic and genomic research, which are the basis of some of the traits that are considered good, but they could be dangerous, they could be sublethal or lethal in some cases, but still now no direct scientific link is given in the preparation, for example, of the standard. Because if you take into consideration, for example, there's a breed with a ridge on the back that some research say it's linked to a negative gene, but if you read the standard, it's written that in Thai ridgeback and Rhodesian ridgeback, if you don't have this ridge, you should be disqualified. So ridgeless are not considered as a genetic reservoir, healthy genetic reservoir, but something to be eliminated from selection. Hairless dog and cats, we have some breeds, traditional, very ancient breeds. We have to brainstorm about this. And then the male factor, we have regulation avoiding the mating of a male dog, which is the first step action that the Italian Kennel Club takes in order to preserve and prevent from problems related to type and wrong selection. We divided the pedigree in two levels of pedigree. So we have the standard pedigree that is focused on the genealogy of the dog, and which is the function of this pedigree. First of all, the traceability, and then we consider these dogs as a genetic reservoir and the base for biodiversity conservation. This is what is the classical pedigree. And then we have a selected pedigree, and you can imagine that when you made when you made two selected breeders, the color of the pedigree that is given to the puppy is different. So the brown one is the standard one, and the selected one is red. And which is the point we have to focus on. We have to say that in selected pedigree, we have the genealogy, but in both parents have to fulfill health requirement, health test requirements, and these health tests are I'll describe them a little bit later, but they are prepared for every breed according to club request and evaluation of the scientific committee and then of the central committee with the representative of the ministries, behavioral test the same, and conformation requirement. For example, very good for female and excellent for dog in specialty show, and so on. One of the very difficult points, I think, is that being breeder mainly focus on conformation show. They think that selected breeder should be always excellent in a specialty show, but we are trying to teach them in understanding that they, like Jerobel say, you have to consider the breed as a population. And so the mean is the value you have to focus on, the normal distribution and so on. This is a very difficult point to be understood. And then genetic variability requirements, there's a star at the end of the line because according to the number, the population number of each breed, you have different level of requirements according to the number of dogs you have in the stat book. So if you have less than 100 dogs in the stat book, you have to be very careful about the inbreeding. So the four grandparents should be totally different and so on to be selected breeder, for example. And the function is more effective. So you have traceability, genetic reservoir, biodiversity conservation as in standard pedigree, but you have breed health and type improvement because you are selected breeders. So this is the point, like the elite population for the selection. We have, I have my face here, so we have this kind of this slide. I wanted to show you what is in under a numerical presentation, what we call the elite population of selected breeder. I listed some very well-known breeds, and what I wanted to underline is that the number of selected breeder is not directly, there's an inverse proportion between the number of entries, for example, per year, and the number of dog that in the same year received the title of selected breeder. We have Labrador Retriever that are less than 0.5%, Golden Retriever that are very, very famous breeds according to the number of entry we have, Chihuahuas, and Maremma, Brutzes and Maremma, we just changed the name. I needed to memorize that. And has a very high number of selected breeder, and every dog we are talking about here follow all the certification of the conformation, health test, behavioral test, and so on in order to be listed in this part of the stat book. Yeah, an important point before going on is that according to the Italian legislation about the management of stat book, we have to have open stat book. So all the information should be publicly available. And so going in the Italian Kennel Club NC website, you can have access and check everything you can about every dog you wanted to study. And this is a very important point for the preservation of the different breeds. So, which are the technical action taken and considered, maybe if not already 100% taken, considering the future? We have already this part, and we have to underline another important point. Italian Kennel Club is the only kennel club that has his own molecular genetic laboratory, and it was a spin-off laboratory from the University of Milan. I'm one of the founder, and it is very important because there's a lot of effective and objective data that can be originated in this laboratory. So about breed-specific health test, In Italy, nothing can be done by all the veterinarians. There are strong scientific association, official scientific association of veterinarian with a different specialization, and so everything should be strictly regulated. So we have DNA tests with specific protocols, a clinical tests with specific protocols, taking into consideration the official recognition of the Doctor of Veterinary Medicine. For example, it's like a DNA test is based on the ring test of International Society of Animal Genetic. And for example, for the clinical test of eye health, you have to be a member of the European ECVO. And so all this kind of standardization is very, very important in order to have recognized results of the test that you can add on the profile of your dog on the open stat book. Another very important point, working on since many years, is judge formation. Uh, Seminars about dog welfare and extreme type that usually are taken by academic speaker who are breeder and judge, and so there's the same language towards the judge and the breeder. And it is a very important point, in particular when judge has to choose which is the champion, that is the representative of a breed. In addition, since some years, we are applying some tests like the brachycephalic exercise aptitude test for health, the breath, and the respiratory function grading scheme. At the moment, we are already working with this one, and in the next month, I know there will be Jane Ledlow here in Italy for this one, and so everything will go on. The assessment is very close. We This one is the French test, and we are part with France and Portugal and Spain of the Alliance Canine Mediterranean and Latin Alliance Canine, and it's very important. We have the same test too, so we consider very good both of them, and we are applying and will apply all of them. Uh, and then we have specific actions of the Scientific and the Central Technical Commission. We receive a question from the club, from the breeder, and we work on these requirements. Um, all these technical points are supported by a standardized and control of the pedigree via DNA analysis, and there's a different kind of algorithm that select samples to be analyzed. And it is, for example, if you take into consideration the breed of the English Bulldog, some years ago there was the problem of a puppy without pedigree imported from Eastern country. They were added to the litter. So all the English Bulldog puppies are registered and are parentage tested by the laboratory, the main laboratory that is Vetogene Servizi, and other laboratories officially recognized. And so, for example, this is a constant for the breed. The same is for a Czech wolf dog, and other breeds has some controls that can choose a different subject for the analysis. Breath test has been well accepted by the club and by the breeders, and these are the results of 2 years of test, and we exchange our test with Portugal and France too. And this is a very important point. We have a lot of breed that can be tested with the breath test. I listed our results here, and so French Bulldog is the breed with the highest number of tests. It's the most common of the extreme brachycephalic one. I divided the color of the group number 2 in light blue and the group number 9, companion dog, in green. And so we applied to different breeds. We have the Napolitan Mastiff, that is a traditional heritage breed from Italy, and we tested them too. So we have a total in 2 years of 431 subjects, and the number is growing. So, which are the critical control points? Starting from the operator, we have to take into consideration the kennel club, judges, breeders, owners, but we can't avoid to take into consideration what is the public perception of the problem of extreme type. And what is the recipe that we are trying to apply? We try to put science in the passion of dog breeding in order to improve dog welfare. Listing the tools, we can say we have the pedigree, the breed standard, but we have a big support, a very strong and effective support by health and behavior test. That is a very important point to develop in the next year. Already working very well, but thanks to genomic approach, could be really, really strengthened and improve more. Some of the breeder and of the judge will be sick within some seconds after watching at the color of this dog. That is just to call our attention because what is the strategies that can be developed in order to control extreme type? We try to suggest a dynamic approach focusing on a strong technical support, a scientific support to direction board, breed clubs, and breeders. And in addition, we have to underline that Italian Kennel Club has a constant confrontation and interaction with activists and welfare association in order to focus on the welfare of the dog, avoiding any other aspect that could lead to poor welfare of the dog or the extinction of the breed. So, judges' formation and responsibility. This is a very important topic. And for example, this year in June, there will be the World Dog Show in Italy, in Bologna, and there will be an important congress for judges where the first topic will be welfare and extreme type. And the moderator will be Professor Vergara, who is a professor in veterinary medicine, and will focus on the aspect of avoiding extreme type and the responsibility of judging every breeds in registered breeds. Another important point, do not forget non-brachycephalic breeds because the problems are very differentiated. So consider what we listed in slide from 3 to 6. Clear standard definition is needed because we have a basic role on what is the morphological evaluation, conformational evaluation of the dog when they are judged in a show ring. So the basic role of championship as a certificate assignment is very important for the breeder who aim to have champion to select the breed, to select the breeder to championship for the protection of the breed. Apply the powerful tools of genomic analysis in breeding plan definition. Tomorrow we have a presentation by Paola Crepaldi, who is a very good researcher about genomic analysis in dog. And so we have to, nowadays we are very lucky because we have these new tools and we have to use them as much as possible. And then one of the suggestions I usually give, but it is not always well considered, in particular by breeders and breed clubs, is a health-based open registry or open stat book, because it is very important. You know, when you consider, for example, the lilac merle dog we have in this picture, it's from a not registered population. But what are the characteristics of population? We can't forget that maybe it's from a puppy mill, usually, and there is no selection for the weak. So they are usually healthy. They are maybe not so typical, not so extreme, but anyway could be considered good genetic reservoir. Because I think once again that dog breeds should be considered as a population in animal sciences. So it is important not to focus on some traditional point like the color, because nowadays we know everything about the color. We know the loci, we know the test, we have the test, we know the combination. It's very easy to play with color under a genetic point of view. And so at the end, which is the basic point, we have to try to focus the decision in determining breeding plan on science more than tradition. Usually, this breed has always had this and this and this. Yes, but we know this is not functional, this is unhealthy, and so we have to move to something that is functional and healthy, and maybe going back to the origin of the breed with the function, with the morphology and conformation. So, uh, we try to reduce the impact of extreme type, but once again, our main focus is to preserve the uniqueness of heritage breed as Italian Kennel Club. I'm really involved, so this is the reason why I use the pronoun we. And I present you one of the Italian breeds, one of the rarest, considering the number of entries per year. This is Bergamasco sheepdog, that is a dog working on the Alps. It's a herding breed, and this is the dog that almost 30 years ago, 29 years ago, was the theme and the object of my master degree in animal science. So, thank you to this breed and the work I started many years ago. I'm still here talking about preservation of purebred dog and their welfare and health. So thank you very much for your attention and ready for your questions.